sure that worked. Okay, that can go down. This can come up. Make sure that worked. There we go. Okay, all right, that's good. That can go down. This can come up. Make sure that worked. There we go. All right. Okay, we are live. It seems to be working. And actually, let's do one thing. I'm going to have Jennifer, can you say a few words?
I can say a few words.
We are live. It seems to be working. And actually, let's do one thing. I'm going to have Jennifer, can you say a few words?
I can say a few words.
All right. So last month, the online audio for everybody but me was not working. Now it is. Fixed the problem. So we are good. We are ready to start. And Jennifer, you can take us on whenever you're ready to go.
All right. The March 2022 meeting of the Board of Directors for the South Whidbey Parks and Recreation District is called to order at 6:02 p.m.
Okay, we do have
a quorum present.
We do have a quorum present. We actually have everybody present, and we have quite a few people online. I don't know if anybody is here for public comment. If you're here for public comment, you want to wave at your screen and let me know that you want to make a comment. John wants to make a comment. Go ahead, John.
I am merely here in support of your mission as a constituent. Thank you for all you do.
Okay, thank you, John. Anyone else in the peanut gallery wishing to make a comment? Seeing nobody, hearing nobody, I'm going to close out this box on the screen so it doesn't show up all the time. All right, so next on would be the approval of the minutes.
All right, has every commissioner had an opportunity to review the minutes from the February meeting? Are there any questions or comments?
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion to approve the February meeting minutes.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, has been moved and seconded to approve the February 2022 meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Krista, aye.
Jake, aye.
Aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion passes.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Matt, will you please lead us?
I will. If you can pull that up on the screen.
Yeah, one moment. Have to move one set of controls out of the way to get to the other one. There we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It looks like when it was brought into PowerPoint there, our update box just got crunched a little bit. So sorry for that. The one that you see, the Excel file that you see on the website should be formatted correctly, but we can read it. So again, this is the overall slide. Remember, favorable is up in all cases, and revenue on the top, expenses on the bottom, and the net forecast shown in the magenta line. So you can see in this case for the first time this year and for the first month in the last probably 18, we are unfavorable to plan this month, roughly $10,000 at the end of February. There's a couple of significant reasons for that help us understand that over the term and by the end of the first quarter, we should be at least on plan, if not favorable. So you can see when we changed or when we adjusted the youth basketball plan based on the rapidly changing COVID protocols, we ended up shifting to the skills clinics versus the actual league play. And as a result, we had a significant request for refunds from participants. We also had to replace a laptop that was not in the plan for February. And because of some delays with the U.S. Postal Service with processing actual voucher payments, we've moved up the payment of vouchers, the timeline for the payment of vouchers, and for loan repayments. So it's moving up in a particular month, and affecting this, affecting the revenue expense balance versus plan unfavorably as a result. But it's just based on the situation with USPS that we did not anticipate. And we've also had roughly $25,000 unfavorable impact on M&O tax revenue year over year. So net that sent us 10,000 unfavorable, and you'll see the detail in the following slides. So the next slide, please. So there's the revenue impact. It's 32K unfavorable. You can see the refunds from basketball and the levy impact. Next slide shows the expense. So expenses are favorable. So staff, I think, has done a good job with expense control in light of the revenue shortfall. So you can see we control expenses, total 21K favorable. We're not quite able to overcome the 32K revenue unfavorability, but I think a great job by the staff across the board. You can see between maintenance and programs. So well done in the face of those unplanned circumstances in February. Next slide, you can see the fund balance on plan, and just note that reserve balance has been reset. It was reset in January. It's reset to the December beginning cash, or the January 2023 beginning cash requirement. So we're already reset to the value we need to be in December. So we don't have any uphill battle we got to fight there as we try to recover this overall budget to plan unfavorability. Any questions on any of that or any of those specifics before we move on to the vouchers? Okay, Doug, if you can pull up the voucher list. Thank you.
Okay, so changes in the vouchers since they came out on Friday. We had another payroll, so there's some changes there. We had obviously a whole another 2 weeks of payroll, so we paid our staff yesterday, so that came in. You can see here a lot of the refunds to the basketball teams, $175 for basketball team sponsorships, all the way across the board. So that will be continuing to dig into us. There's at least 5 or 6 of them there. Some building repair supplies, some brushes, some stain. Our February fuel expense for filling up the gas tanks. Some more refunds there. And then just some supplies, some online stuff for domain name renewal and online services with Microsoft to try and get us more, as we've talked about in previous meetings, more online friendly for the future. Some of our deferred comp and tax payments, payroll tax liability. And then we did have to replace a warrant endorsement stamp with the county. So there's that as well. And there's our total expenses for the month. Those are the changes since it came out on Friday.
Does anyone have any questions on the original voucher listing or any of the changes that Doug highlighted?
Yes, I did actually. And on Friday, there was a property payment, and I just didn't know which property. I know I should, but I didn't.
That's for the campground property.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only property we have a payment on.
Okay, got it. And then actually hold it right there. The other thing, so the Amazon charge of $774.30 for doggy pot bags, is that annual? Is that quarterly? What does that represent?
Is Tom on here?
I don't know if Tom's actually on tonight.
Okay. I don't know, but I would say that's probably about maybe yearly.
We don't.
But I guess,
We don't order a ton of those. We replace them as needed. So we try and get a fairly big order when we do. That's a fairly big order. That's not a small order.
Yeah, that's what. I was like, wow, it's a lot of dog bags. So yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
but you got to remember we have about 3 or 4 stations in the main park, and at least one or two
Absolutely.
over at Trustland, and we try and keep those stocked at all times.
Understood. Again, I just was curious about the timeline.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Gary.
Can you, Doug, could you flip, just to follow up on Krista's question, Doug, could you flip back to the treasury report slides and the fund balances slide?
Oh wait, let me see. I closed it out, so hold on.
Sorry.
Nope, not a problem. I just closed it out.
Yeah,
You want the fund
so
balances?
go to the fund. Yeah, and then zoom in on that upper right corner where the legend is. If you can.
If
go to
I
slideshow
can.
mode. Yeah, just go in slideshow and
Hold on. There you go.
yeah. So Krista, your point is, your question is a good one, and it's one, you know, we use terminology in the voucher listing and in the 5-year budget and in the 1-year budget projection. Sometimes that's a little bit obscure. So the update to the fund balances slide that Carrie made when she came into the position was to add some of that terminology into this legend. So you can, if you forget from month to month, I use this as my reference because I can never remember that terminology either. So that's where you can see that word property fund is associated with the campground. Same, and you can see where the word capital, which again is not a specific term, at least relative to identifying the budget category or the specific account. So you should always be able to reference back to this slide from a previous month to be able to connect those terms to what they actually are.
Okay.
Thanks for explaining that in detail, Matt. I appreciate that as well.
Okay. So yeah, sorry, Doug, you can go back to the voucher list.
Okay. Maybe, if I can. Hold on.
Right.
Any other questions on the voucher list?
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion to approve the voucher listing for the M&O fund for a total amount of $91,942.82.
I'll second that motion.
Has been moved and seconded to approve the voucher list for $91,942.82. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Krista, I.
Jake, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes and the voucher list is approved.
Okay, thank you all. And just as a reminder, Carrie did send that email out, and since we are meeting remotely still this month, we will hopefully have you guys email that in as soon as you're done with the meeting today and approve the vouchers so we can send them in.
Great. All right. Can we move on to the staff report, please, Doug?
Absolutely. All right, staff report. Oh wow, that's scrolling down quickly. So through March 10th, you could see indoor pickleball continues to be well attended. Futsal on the weekends on Saturday is well attended as well. Youth basketball skills, we have 47 going on in the 2-hour sessions Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and open gyms on Tuesday. We've got Canine Nosework starting up. We've got Botanical Jewelry. We've got Canine Life Skills, Puppy Foundation. We got a lot of doggy stuff going on. Coming up, we've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday indoor drop-in pickleball. We've got Saturday futsal. We've got intro to pickleball second session added. We're getting a lot of pickleball interest. Puppy Foundation, a few other skills classes coming up there as well. And our summer activity guide will be released next month prior to our board meeting. So keep your eyes open for that. We're finalizing class schedules for the summer activity guideline. Deadline for submissions was yesterday. Currently reviewing applications for concerts in the park. We'll be offering 4 concerts this year on June 22nd, July 6th, August 3rd, and August 17th. We no longer are required to have masks at the South Whidbey Community Center. We've also done the same thing at our offices. So for activities at the community center, basketball, futsal, pickleball, they're no longer required to wear masks. We've upgraded the internet speed at the administrative office so that cloud updates and video calls won't interfere with our voice over IP phones, which is nice. And we've created separate Google business accounts for the Park District Office, Community Park, and Sports Complex in process of verifying trust land trails with Google. So those are all good things on that. And, just as a side note, we're still working through details on our process of going forward on the change to our online protocols. We are now able to access our files from anywhere, which is nice. It's helped me a lot over the past week while working from home, recovering from this crap. But it is still in process. We will be working. We'll probably have like a commissioner a workshop session to get you guys on board with that in the future here to get email addresses set up correctly and get everything done right. So Google Business Insights for February 7th to March 6th. We've got a number of requested directions from Google Business Listings to the office. You can see we get a lot to Community Park and the Sports Complex. Number of times customers have taken action on business listing in the Google search. You can see there we're getting good numbers there as well. And number of times our business listing appeared in searches or addresses on Google Search or Maps. Again, Community Park leads us by far, which is really nice. You can see that it is our flagship park, but it makes perfect sense that we're getting that kind of traffic there. For the maintenance, spring is on us and everything is beginning to come to life. I don't know about your yard, but mine needs to be mowed now again, and I just mowed it last weekend. Baseball fields, we're working to get those in game playable shape and opening all fields as things are drying out. Youth numbers for Little League and soccer are up from what we have heard. Sunny afternoons have seen the public flocking to the park. Tom would like us to look in the future at addressing parking issues. The playground area is in overflow mode daily when the sun comes out, and hopefully we can just start looking for solutions as to adding parking in. We had unexpected snow, and that created many down trees and limbs to clean up. Our staff recently finished trail cleanup in Community Park, but as of last week when we put this report in, we still needed to get out to trust land as time permits to deal with some debris out there. So my report is very short this month. I had a week-long vacation, and then prior to that I tested positive for COVID. So I don't have a ton to report. All of the items I have to report are in the regular agenda. So I kind of feel silly reporting on them in the staff report and then talking about them in the regular agenda. So I didn't even bring them up in the report. Today is our regular monthly board meeting, and then next month it will be on April 20th at 6 p.m. Any questions on the staff report?
So Doug, when you say that you're currently reviewing applications for concert in the park, that means for bands, for the musical portion of it?
Yes, correct. So bands would have applied to play and told us what they wanted. And Sky will be going through those, listening to them. And, I have my full-on veto rights of anybody that, I listen to and go, oh, God, no. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have that. But Sky will be reviewing those applications. Generally, those are recording some, photos and then a kind of a description of the band. And we kind of go through them as a staff and go, yeah, this looks good, this looks good, this looks good, and look at our budget and what fits.
All right. Are we going to be looking to community businesses for sponsorships of those concerts?
We could be.
Yes, we do that. And some of the bands will actually have questions on the bid form that they fill out. Is do you personally know someone who you think might sponsor your concert in part or full? And so we also get some sponsorship that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got just a comment about the parking. I've noticed the same thing that Tom's probably noticing, more and more people at the playground area. And I know Tom had talked about excavating a little bit of that area and extending the parking. People are already kind of parking on the hillside and moving further and further into the grassy areas, which I'm sure thrills Tom to no end. But my recommendation would be that's a pretty low cost type of construction project when Tom and crew has time. But I don't know, Doug, if that's been talked about or if anybody's moving down that road.
We haven't talked specifically about that, but I think that's probably something we should look at maybe in the capital projects committee or something like that, and just kind of look at that as one of those projects and what we can do, and kind of nail that down and bring that back to the board. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Eric, we did not specifically discuss it in the budget planning cycle. So, it's one of those we've had in the capital projects list, in the list of deferred projects. Generally, we've had it when we talked about grouping projects together in the park improvement category, we had it grouped into that. So we've talked around it, but last year in the budget cycle for this one-year budget, we didn't bring it up as a specific target project. So
it doesn't seem like a huge expense, and if I understood what Tom was talking about, it's more just the labor involved of excavation and creating walls that they've made similar, a slight retaining wall, but you're picking up a whole bunch of space, a whole lot of parking space, and directing people kind of in the right way and away from the grassy areas. But I just thought, I didn't know if that had already been talked about, and I know that Tom's probably seeing the same thing I am, with more and more cars parking along the edges and just, getting into the grassy areas. Anyway, I don't see it as a huge expense. That's why I brought it up.
I don't think it would be generally a very, it depends on what we did with it. If we did a full-on parking lot with, a base and asphalt and everything like that, that's a different thing entirely, and that's going to be a lot more expensive. We are going to have to do permitting, whatever we put down, even if it's just gravel, because we are going to have to, they consider gravel impervious in Island County, so we have to make sure that we get approval for clearing and all that kind of stuff. Clearing and grading and all that kind of stuff would have to be done. So it's not a huge expense, but it is an expense. And it's, like you said, Eric, it's a lot of staff time if we do it in-house. Any other questions on the staff report?
Just to follow up on this parking, understood that it would be some sort of expense, but can we get some of those estimated costs?
Well, we'll look at, it depends on what we do. So yes, we can look at a plan to put together what our recommendations are from a staff perspective, and then get some costing on those.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, Doug, I just wanted to make a couple of special mentions. I mentioned it just a second ago in the Treasury report, but I just want to extend thanks to Sky in particular, and also Carrie for her support, and Doug, the support you provided to the kind of chaos around basketball. It was about as fluid a situation. I mean, I think it was more fluid than even some of the worst-case ones we dealt with during the peak of COVID last year. Just trying to figure out what we could do and how, and in what facilities, and deal with the school district and the county. And things were changing by the day, and with the the federal testing program, and I thought Sky and Carrie and with your support, Doug, did a fantastic job of finding a way through that would accommodate the community in really the only way possible, plausible, provide some stability when it was really, really uncertain for a lot of those players, either on our side or in their school environment. So really great job by the whole team getting through that. I know that was incredibly tough and stressful. And the other one I want to say thanks to is for pulling through on the futsal. That was, we've been struggling with that particular user group for a long time, and to make that program work and actually pull it off, and you see we're pushing 60 participants. That is a huge success story, and it's not easy. It involves people working on the weekends and, coming in on time that they would otherwise be doing other things with family. And that's not lost on us. I think that's reaching out to that particular part of the community, and it's a cross section. It is just it's an incredible effort, and I think it's already paying off just in our conversations with that group towards some of the grant applications we've been talking about. I think it's just fantastic work by Doug, you, and the staff to make that happen. So thank you.
Yeah, I think most of the kudos on that go to Sky. I mean, he was given free rein to do what he needed to do and support from us. A lot of the restrictions we had were not ones that were imposed by us, but we had to do what we had to do, and we did it. So, anything else? Staff report?
Yeah, can I jump on that Sky bandwagon and just say that I really like seeing the Google Business added for the facilities, and I really enjoy seeing the report of the numbers. So thank you very much for including that.
Yep. It's really good
I had
to
a
see
question.
Go ahead.
On the bands and concerts in the park. I guess two-part. How many do we tend to have throw their name in the hat in hopes of playing? And then two, is the goal to try to get different genres per the handful of times that we do it to kind of appease the entire community?
Yes. So to answer your second question first, yes, we try to vary the genre and do different types of music as much as we possibly can. The first question, how many do we get normally? It varies year to year. We can get 7 or 8. We can get 10 or 12. We don't usually get a ton. We do generally get. We're not usually searching for enough to make 4 concerts. We usually have more than enough to make 4 concerts. So it's really just going through and deciding which acts fit best and trying to get a definite variety of genres. So if somebody doesn't like a particular style of music, there's something for them there.
We also sometimes utilize a talent agent. Pacific Rim Talent often will send options to us as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on the staff report before we move on? Okay. All right.
Let's move on to the next order of business. Unfinished business, comprehensive plan programs.
Okay, I'm going to take you off my screen there and move this there. Okay, so not much has changed. We did sign the 1-year agreement for the small water system management plan with King Water, and that's been communicated to the state. So we have a certified water system operator on board. I've let David know so we can expedite any of the things that we need to get done to get that small water system management plan approved. I have reached out to the county on setting up a meeting to review our application for site plan review and make sure we don't have anything additional now that there's somebody new managing it that we need to do prior to going to bid. We will need that small water system management plan approved prior to going out to bid so that we know we can move forward. Grant applications, been working with committees on design and costing, and Matt's been doing some renderings on that I'm going to let him present to you right after this. And I finally was able to get back in and access because they made changes to the Recreation Conservation Office, made changes to their PRISM platform, and I finally got back in today working with their information technologies folks. Got logged back into our account so I can go in and do that. The other thing that I will note is I did have a conversation, and our wonderful grants manager, Allison, is back from her maternity leave. So she is back in the office, and she and I had a meeting this morning, went through what we need to do to close out the grant for Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for the Max Walton Trails Park property. So we've got a few items to tick off on that, and then we'll be shutting that down. And then looked at what we're looking at doing for this coming grant cycle with her to start things in that process. So did have that meeting today. I will be doing a couple of checklist items tomorrow on that and moving forward. Any questions before I switch it over and let Matt take over on any of that?
Doug, do you have a projected timeline on getting the Waterman property closed up?
I need to sign and fax and scan back a map. I need to get the final title insurance policy uploaded, and I need to do a final billing and I think that was it. So there was like 3 or 4 items: final report, final billing, final title insurance policy, and then sign and send back the map. Most of it is I don't think we have, and I was going to double check with Carrie to make sure we had nothing else to bill the grant funds for before I closed it out. That would be one of the last items that I need to sit down with Carrie on and just make sure there's nothing I'm missing, and then send in the final report to them in Prism, which now I'm able to do. So all of that, most of that should be handled tomorrow.
So the final billing, just to be clear, is just recapturing any costs that...
Right. Is there something we've expended that would be eligible for reimbursement from those grant funds? And I don't think that I don't think we've expended anything else that could be reimbursed. So I'm going to double check with Carrie tomorrow, make sure we go through everything, and then we can move forward. We do want to put in a permanent sign at some point, but that would be a part of the construction of that initial access trail. And I think we can do that out of the bond funds that we still have prior to refunding that to the community. The balance.
What's the status, Doug, of that easement that was surveyed? Where do we stand on the?
Oh, we've applied for site plan review to put the trail in, and I have to follow up with them again. And they said they've received it and they have everything they need to make their decision. So I'm just waiting on the decision now. So once we get that decision, we can look to next fall and go, we're ready to build that trail in, and go from there.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a Prism question?
Yep.
So do they, and I've forgotten, it's been a while, do they allow us now, since the application window is open, do they allow us now to create or do they create for us, does Allison create for us a folder repository for application materials for each application, or do we do that, or is there a time gate we got to pass through before we can do that?
That's a me thing. I do that for us. And I will start those now that I have access again, late this week, early next. Since I'm coughing and hacking and not somebody, I'm not contagious, but I don't think people perception wise want to be around me. I can just work from home here on the laptop and plug all of that data in and get those applications started. And then we can start gathering those documents and putting those things in. I create the files, I create the applications in Prism, and then I can download a PDF of each, and those can be reviewed by the grant committees, and we can go from there.
Okay. And do you know offhand, one of the things that's come up in conversations this week with our legislators and their offices and staffs is that there may be an opportunity to make application to a couple of State Department of Commerce programs, not RCO, but commerce programs. Do you know offhand if those applications are also managed in Prism?
I do not. I don't know where those would be managed. So if you have information on that, I would suggest having the representatives or contacting them and having them send it to me or to you.
Yeah, there's a capital funding committee in Olympia that I think must be somewhere near the RCO folks.
Okay.
And I just got a response from one of their office folks, a project manager. So I'll just bounce back to them. I'll copy you and just say, hey, what's the medium for the application? And I'm hoping it's Prism, because it's in Prism now through that Secure Access Washington portal. So I would think it would be comprehensive.
Yeah, it is. You would think it would be comprehensive. I don't know if it is. I know that's really what the RCO uses, and that's what they've been using for a long time. I'm not exactly sure where that would be. So, and that's what the whole problem was with my access was, for some reason, my Secure Access Washington and Prism got confused and weren't talking to each other. And I'd reset the password on Prism and it would just not let me in. and I'd reset it and reset it and reset it. And then I finally called them and they said, oh, well, let us reset your password for you. And I said, okay, let's try that, but it didn't work last time. So that's where we are. So now the password's been reset. I'm now in. We are good to go. So did we just lose Matt?
Excellent. No, I'm here.
Okay.
Your recording dropped in and out.
Really? Oh, interesting. I just lost you on my screen. Did you turn your camera off?
Nope.
That's weird. There you are. Now you're back. Okay, so that's all I had on comprehensive plans. Matt, do you want to kind of show us the renderings?
Yeah, Eric is gonna share in. We're gonna talk pickleball first, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Eric is gonna share in.
Yep. Yeah. Okay by me. I'm trying to pull them up here. Doug, I don't know. I'm hoping everybody can see this. I have a rendering up that Barry gave us.
I just made you presenter, so you might have to do something.
Yeah, I don't see it yet, Eric.
Let me go here. Okay. Not as familiar with GoToMeeting. Let's see here. Okay, can you see it now?
I cannot.
Can I try sharing again?
Hold on a
It seems
second.
to-
Let me do something here. I'm gonna stop sharing. And I'm gonna open up my
I still
screen.
think you were presenter.
Yeah, it might still think I'm presenter. Make presenter. There we go. That's why. I was still sharing my screen. Now try it.
It's not now. Go to meeting features.
If you see at the bottom, Eric, there should be a microphone, a camera, and then a screen. Click on the screen. Click on the screen, and that should share your screen.
I'm doing that, and I'm hoping that is working.
Not yet.
I go. I went through the process, but it doesn't seem to be giving me anything. Still got a line through it. So it's not now when I go there. GoToMeeting needs accessibility features. Maybe I don't have the.
Well, you
Yeah,
are.
it just gives,
You
it
are
gives me
the.
not. Go ahead.
So you might not have the features. Matt, do you have the? Because I know you've presented before.
I do. I have it too. So you could give me rights.
I'm gonna make you the
Good.
presenter. Let's try it that way, and then Eric can talk about it.
Maybe we can talk later, Doug, and make sure I'm hooked up for it here. It's not giving me any of the
There you go.
ability to do it.
Can you see it, Eric?
So that, yeah, if everybody can see that, that's Barry has shared this. This was kind of the first initial discussion, the South Whidbey Pickleball Association, and those guys have done just a bang up job. The other one I was going to show, but I'll speak to this quickly. This is just a rough rendering of space, but I really like the way they thought about how people move if you were to have a tournament or a gathering or instructions. And so they included enough space around the perimeter, but also in the middle. And that middle alleyway, I think, is really critical. They also, if you look here, put a shed on the end, an entry gate. I think in this particular design, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but the proposed sports field would be over here. And then you would probably enter from that existing path here into this.
Yeah, no, exactly right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I can hang on. I'll show that real quick. Can you see that now?
Yep.
yeah, so that's this would be I would assume this would be fencing as opposed to there we go.
Yeah. So you see that central alleyway there now per their layout? So you can see the they wanted this to be wider, and it makes sense once you kind of space things out. So this is a 16-foot corridor, and you can see kind of benches and tables, and then that shed, and then this 6-court layout kind of as it, and then you can see kind of.
One of the things they added in here, I've been to courts that don't have the divisions. They're side by side, and it's a mess. It's rough. You know, eventually they end up makeshifting something. So they put some thought into this. Matt, I don't know if you have that other one too, but Barry also sent a list of actual items that we would need. It says defining court requirements, and it's got everything from paint to windscreen to drinking fountain, ball holders, and so on.
Yep. Yeah, no, I have that. I didn't save it off, so it'd be a chore to go find it. But yeah,
Nonetheless, the Pickleball Association has done a great job of kind of thinking this one all the way through and looking at other courts, and then having so many players that play all over the place. I find myself, whenever I'm going somewhere, I was out this weekend, I'm just looking at multitudes of courts and trying to figure out, what design would be best. And I think what they created, their thought process is pretty good about the spacing and not only that, but even maybe future expansion if needed in that same area. And then the other most recent, and Doug, I don't think all the commissioners were privy to this, but Barry just said something out there, trying fundraising efforts, and their goal is to come up with some extra funding beginning in April, and they're looking for private donors and community members, and with the goal of being to offset some of the costs and hopefully get the pickleball courts and enough equipment developed in a more timely fashion. So I think we've got a lot of people on board. Pickleball is definitely going nuts right now across the nation, and South Whidbey is no different than any other place.
Yeah, I did see that letter, and it looked pretty good. I just had a first quick glance at it, so did like it. The only question I had on this, and it's something that we'll bring up in committee, you can see how the courts are oriented. The way this is set up, I might orient these the other way, just thinking about where the sun is in the sky, because if the sun's rising, the east would be to the left of my screen as I'm looking at it, and it would come up in and be in one player's eyes, and then it would set and it would be in the other player's eyes. So if you reorient the courts so they're north-south, it would go across and above the top of the courts and not be shining directly in somebody's eyes. Kind of like the sports field is, the main sports field on the artificial turf, the field drawing there goes north-south. That's the reasoning for that.
I thought this was north-south because you're saying, Doug, right here, well, you can't see my cursor, but
No.
It would be to the left of our screen, the sun would come across, and then during midday, wouldn't that be hitting center court?
Well, during midday, it would be hitting center court wherever it was.
No, I'm just saying, I don't think it would be setting, and there's a tree line behind the courts as well. I think that tree line is still going to be affecting play for a good portion of the evening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. No. What I'm saying is looking at this, north is at the bottom of the screen. So if the sun's coming up, it's going to be shining in the player on the right side of the court, right in their eyes. And when the sun's going down, you're right, the tree line will help. But as it goes down, it would be in the other player's eyes.
Yeah. So
if you reorient the courts so the court is just 90 degrees turned, all of a sudden the sun's coming up. It's not directly in somebody's eyes as they're playing. It's a question to ask the players. It's just a question to ask if that makes a difference. Some sport, it might not with pickleball. I don't know.
I know from personal experience, the volleyball court at Lighthouse Park in Mukilteo, one side of the court, you're directly staring into the sun, and it's a chore. However, volleyball's quite different. You're looking up a lot more, but that is a really good point.
It's just a question to ask.
A while back, I ordered a pickleball construction book, and in there are recommendations for how to orient the courts themselves in relation to the cardinal directions. And I believe it's north and south, approximately.
Perfect.
Yeah, sharing that out would be great.
Or it can probably be orientated either way.
Correct.
I mean, it's pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In terms of the square of it, it is very close. So orienting it. The only issue is the way that center lane is structured is positioned as you see there. It feeds out into the existing pathway that goes back over towards community park. So, it just would mean we'd have to construct a longer, 100-foot section of path that wouldn't have to be constructed in this orientation, or we'd have to split the courts differently. So, yeah, no, I think it's either way is fine, and that was one of the purposes of doing this and laying it out in detail, is to get all these things out on the table. So, yeah, Carrie, if you share that to me and Eric, then we can review it before we go talk to the pickleball folks.
Okay, it's an old school paper book.
Oh, sweet.
So
Sweet.
you might have to come look at it there.
Yeah. Can you just leave it out in the conference room?
Knock it off. Lie down.
In the drawer there in the conference room, and Eric and I can swing in there sometime in the next couple of days.
And yeah.
I have a question on the fencing. So is that like a standard chain link cyclone fence that you can add windscreens to?
Yep.
Was it?
Yep.
There was some images that had like a divider in them, and that was the windscreen.
No, that's just a rendering artifact. So
Okay.
before it renders the actual chain links, it just renders it as a white sheet. So yeah, but it's instructive, because that's what it would look like with a windscreen. It's I should have claimed that as purposeful, but anyway. So yeah, the windscreen. If you look, we looked at like Port Angeles and some of the other sites. It's a mixed bag. You get some sites that are wind sensitive and they put up screens either on the lower portion or on the full, and other ones that are fully wind protected all the way around. So I think that's a question for the pickleball folks.
Well, and the windscreen is one more thing to clean and maintenance. It looks good originally, and then as time goes on, especially in our neck of the woods, it's just, I don't know. I've seen some of those that look pretty disgusting, and it's one more maintenance item for Tom. It's nice, but if it's not completely necessary and the wind isn't so bad in that area, it may be better without. Just kind of dependent.
Yeah, well, and I was looking at it, and I'm happy it's not there, because I was seeing a blank canvas for potential graffiti, which fortunately we don't have a lot of around here. But if it was enclosed, was what I was going to bring up. So I'm actually personally happy that it's the wind can go on right through.
Yeah, and they're typically on the inside tennis court or on a court like that, and one of the reasons is to prevent what you're talking about. So yeah, so anyway, I think that's a great question as we go forward to figure out. The only panels that are filled in, as you see there over on the fence on the turf field, is our own South Whidbey Parks and Rec signage. And if these were funded partially by a grant program, then we'd have signage like that, to recognize the state LWCF or a partnership with the state or Department of Commerce in this case, if that's one of the programs. So you can see that. That's the only thing that's actually formally in the fencing.
Okay.
So I'll just bridge over and talk about, since we're looking at the same graphic, this is an update to what we talked about last month with the turf field project. You can see this oriented the way Doug had indicated, and we had a review with Doug. When was it? Last week, Doug? Sometime Friday, Thursday. Anyway, we got a chance to go through and look at the detail. So what we've established now is perimeter fencing that's lockable. You can see that reflected here. You can also see that it's lined. Doug, you had talked about a couple of U10, U12 fields, so that the cross field is U10, U12, and 2 of them, and then the full field. And then the baseball lining is in this left-hand corner, feeding out towards the parking lot. And then one of the other things that we talked about last month was the positioning relative to the existing pathway. So this is how it had to move to fit to squeeze inside that existing pathway with no changes to the path. And it ends up taking up about half of the existing parking lot. So which would be a bad thing if there wasn't a pickleball project, because that's our pickleball court, primary outdoor pickleball courts. But so doing these in tandem, eating up half that parking lot, we wouldn't lose the pickleball crowd in so doing. So, yeah, there was a question about lighting. So this is the only field that Doug is recommending we light. You want to talk about that, Doug, on this one?
Yeah, so the thought on the pickleball courts is most of the traffic is during the day. Most of the traffic is during the day in lighted hours, especially in the summer. We'd get some evening traffic in the summer on those. But in the wintertime, we're not going to, when we would light it, and it would be after work hours, most people are not going to be wanting to play. They're going to be wanting to play indoors rather than outdoors. So I thought about the idea of having lights there, or having, future lights. Maybe we could bring them in if demand warranted it. But the additional expense, I think, would be significant on that, and I don't know that we need those. Whereas with the artificial turf field, the main reason we would look to put that in is the idea that it could be used in the wintertime instead of the grass fields, and could be used in the dark time. So lighting it, to me, makes the most sense. So those are my thought processes on including lights on one and not on the other.
Yeah, I would agree that when I look at the sports field, and I know we talked about this a little bit, a lot of what I've seen in those designs, if you look to the left of that where the hill is now, it would be really slick to have, and I've seen this in a couple designs, some form of seating capacity to utilize that hillside.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tom doesn't have to maintenance it, and it's a situation where, I think I've seen even concrete like bleachers with basically steps where people can sit and watch the event, and it's just low maintenance, easy to clean.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the other thing, Doug, you want to talk about the that intercourt spacing fencing, that being temporary?
Well, you had brought that up to me, and my thought on that was that whatever storage shed we build, if most of the courts that Matt had looked at and we've looked at have had not permanent stanchions in the ground for nets, but temporary fencing in between and temporary nets. My thought was, if we're going to have that, that's a great thing to have. And then we can remove those and store them. But whatever shed we build to store it needs to be big enough to store that and any equipment needed to maintain the courts, rollers, brooms, that kind of thing. And then what can be used, what can really be nice about that is that could also be used as a full-on open space. So anything inside that fence, we could take out all the dividing fences and all of the netting, and it's just a fenced-in 3-court area on either side that can be used for futsal. Could be used for a basketball clinic if we wanted to. Whatever we wanted to use it for, whatever made sense in that area, we could do. I'd just have the flooring court space be available as a kind of general sport court.
Yeah, fenced in to keep whatever ball or
Exactly
from leaking out into the field. Yeah, I thought that was a great idea. I think, and Doug's right. It's the subtlety of pickleball versus other racket sports. Look at a tennis court. There's pipes that are cast into the ground in concrete. And they're all, obviously they're always there. In this case, most pickleball nets are just set there, and you can fold them up, roll them up, and set them off to the side. So it's just a unique element of this sport that opens up this court to be used in other ways, and when pickleball's not happening there. Any other thoughts on the either one of these layouts, positions, sizing, lining, anything like that?
Okay.
These diagrams really help to put this all together. So thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, these are going to be great
cool.
for grant applications. We can bring these in as graphics for the grant applications, kind of show them on the ground what we're talking about. I would think we want to address whether it's better to take up parking space for the sports field, or if we want to shift it and reroute the trail so that we can,
Yep.
which is better operationally going forward. I have a feeling if we put in a full-on 6-court facility and a artificial turf field, we might want to have all the parking we have there already and not lose it. But that's something we should discuss.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, that was one of the outcomes of the exercise, especially to figure out if we did squeeze it, and preserve that path in its existing position, what was the outcome of that? So, yeah, good to know, again, with the overall dimensions and the additional spacing on the sides in order to be able to, put the nets away, move nets around for other sports, lacrosse, soccer, baseball, that kind of thing. Okay. And yeah, as Doug said, so each one of these is going to have a grant application in the May 18th cycle. And as Doug indicated, he'll create those shells and load the documents in for each of the grant applications. And then we've got support. We've got folks indicating support. The pickleball folks have indicated that they'll help. The soccer club and futsal folks have indicated they'll help with grant application materials, helping write justifications, going out to get letters of support from other community organizations, school district, Port District, City of Langley, Allen County, that kind of thing. So we got people who have signed up to help. And so that'll be key in order to get these pulled together by the 18th of May, which is the initial deadline for application. Maybe Doug, can you explain why May 18th is not like the firm deadline date, but it's kind of firm?
Well, it is the firm deadline date. You have to have an application in, but you do get the opportunity to revise it after that point. So what the process is you get your application in. There is what's called technical review, where you present your project to the grant program that you're doing. So they'll come in and present their project to us. Most people do that. Some agencies think they know what they're doing and decide not to come to technical review. Get feedback from them, and then go back and rework our presentation. Or our grants manager might tell us, this isn't the year for this. Don't do this year. You're going to be one of 800 different sports fields that are coming in, and there's just too much competition. Take a step back. We might hear that. We might not. So we'll see where it goes, but that's why we do the process. And once the technical review's done, we have, I believe it's about a month to rework our presentation and our project, update any information, and then we present again either late July or early August, I believe. Depends on the program.
Yep.
And then once that presentation is done, the project is final. They are scored, and the scored list is then released, and we don't know what we've got until we see how much funding is in each program.
That's perfect. Thank you, Doug. Yeah,
Yep.
So that 18 May date is when all the materials have to be in. And then, like Doug said, we get a chance to respond to feedback and add, or adjust, but add additional support materials after that. So anyway. Okay, no questions on those. Let me stop sharing. Doug, does that go back to you?
Yep, hold on, let me get that done.
Do you have it back?
I should have it back. There we go.
Okay, so the third project update, I'll give a brief update on the Aquatic Center project, just to note the significant milestone we passed in February. As you know, we through the pool committee, the partnership we have with the Parks and Aquatics Foundation, we reached out last year, starting early last year, to our local legislators, our District 10 legislators, Representative Gilday, Representative Paul, and Senator Mazzal. Through the committee and through the staff, Doug arranged visits to our site. Jen was gracious enough to lead that from a parks standpoint, and we had representatives of the foundation and the pool committee there as we hosted first Senator Mazzal and Representative Gilday, and then later Representative Paul at the site, just behind the building there. Through initial relationship building and education process, we fed into the state capital budgeting process through the fall and winter in consultation with the staffs of our representatives. Representative Gilday is on the House Capital Budget Committee. Through his staff and Representative Paul's staff, they guided us in the application process. We applied for capital budget funding in January, and were selected as a sponsored project jointly by Representative Paul and Representative Gilday. And so they, as a local community project in that category of the state capital budget, we entered that budget cycle this year. Entering it this year made us eligible not for primary funding, but for what they call supplemental capital funding. And we were notified at the end of the legislative session. It ended last Thursday night, but on Friday we were notified by Senator Mazzal and Representative Paul and through Representative Gilday's staff that we were selected in the supplemental round to receive our first award for the Aquatic Wellness Center from the state ever, for a total of $400,000, which represents a significant portion of the supplemental capital funding that was, loosely allocated to District 10. So it represents a strong vote of support, not just from our own local representatives who have sponsored the project, but from our legislature in Olympia and the Senate Ways and Means Committee and the full Senate, who voted to approve the supplemental capital budget. So, and had a couple of subsequent conversations with Representative Paul in particular, who expressed gratitude to us and happiness over the success of the project and through that process in Olympia. And he's scheduled to come visit us again this summer. He wants to see the site and be updated on plans and help us work towards a couple of other applications for funding. One I mentioned earlier was one that they're specifically recommending that we proceed through, and that's the Department of Commerce capital funding programs. There are two that are open for application this year in early summer. One called the Youth Recreation Facilities Grant Program and one called Building Communities Fund. So with their staff helping us, they've offered to help us get through that process, to help build even further the funding, the kind of foundation of funding for the program or for the project. And then we will re-enter the capital budget cycle next year in January. And the total funding request that we've made there is for $5 million. Again, great support from our local legislators, Representative Gilday, Representative Paul, and Senator Mazzal, and a commitment from them, receiving a commitment from them to support us in this ongoing process, that this is a continuum of funding, that this is the first step, that this full capital budget funding, we will be in play for that next year, that we will have support from them for these grant programs, the RCO grant that we're talking about for LWCF, these two commerce grants that are potential candidates, they're fully behind the project. They're fully behind us. And that's thanks to the great work from the very beginning of the committee, the foundation, the park staff, to engage with these, with our representatives and our senator, and to just remain engaged through that process, which is complicated, but ultimately fruitful. And like I said, it represents a strong vote of support for the project and for the community. Anyway, it's a milestone event for us, I think, and just one that I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of the history behind.
Matt, quick question on that, just for my edification. When do we get the 400,000? You said that it's in the supplemental budget, so do we see that next year?
No, we see it this year. So I reached out. I talked to the political counsel for the state Democratic caucus, who seems to be the most well informed about this program. So the money is actually administered to us by the Department of Commerce, and they are going to send us. So you'll probably receive, as the district, I put you on the applicant line when we filled out the application as the district executive director. So you'll get an email from Commerce that comes with basically with a set of contracting rules that tell you, okay, these are the rules you have to follow in executing the expenditure of these funds, and then requesting some basic setup information. So, our account information for the district, other administrative details of our status. And then at that point, and it's at that point, they will complete the authorization, and then it is a reimbursable fund account. So we will submit eligible expenses and then be reimbursed up to the total of 400,000 as we expend them. So it should be
perfect.
I would guess that will all be done by probably mid-May.
Okay. Nope. It's just more timing that I was looking at. Thank you.
And are there any stipulations as to that you know of already for that 400,000 to be used?
No, we'll learn more about that in the paperwork from Commerce. Yeah. So the commitment was for, we are looking at the project timeline. One of the next steps in the project is to move into the design phase, where we enlist a professional design firm to take us further into the design, the cost, the layout on the site, et cetera, et cetera. And so when we were presenting, that was written into our application, and when the supplemental funding opportunity came up, I had a Zoom meeting with Representative Gilday and Representative Paul, and what Representative Paul said during that meeting was could you use, they wanted to know if we were interested in entering the supplemental round, and I said yes. And they said, well, could you use additional money from this round for your work on the design? And I said, absolutely. So it lines up with the next big expenditure. The total design, if you look at the state schedules for municipal capital projects, the state law says that you spend something like 8.5% of your total capital construction cost on architectural design and structural engineering kind of services. So that bill, given the projected cost of the facility, is going to be somewhere between $1 and $2 million total. So this is a start to that. This allows that process to begin. I told that's in our application, and I also told the representatives that I said this is not going to fund the entire design, but it will get us started, which is important because that helps other things start moving. So yeah, we'll see the specific earmarks when it comes. The specific guidelines or restrictions when it comes from Commerce, but in the conversation with our legislators, that's what they believe we're going to spend it on. And if we decide we're going to spend it on something different, it just require us going back to them to give them an update. And we'll do that anyway to say, hey, we've started the process of expending the monies, and this is what we're going to do, and here's the plan. And so we'll have ongoing conversation with them, I'm sure, to keep them in the loop, because we're going to want to keep them engaged anyway.
Is there a timeline in which we have to spend that money? Does it expire?
I don't know. It's a great question. Typically, these awards, you have somewhere between 18 and 36 months to expend them, but I don't know for this specific program. We'll find out.
I think we'll get those details as we get more information from the state on the restrictions and guidelines.
Yeah.
So on the next one, so the 2 commerce grants that you said that is this summer that those open up?
Yeah, they typically open, like the one commerce grant that we were looking at last year is the Community Development Block Grant Program administered through CDB or through Commerce. It's federal money, so it may be on a little bit of a unique schedule, but their application deadline is July 1st. These other 2 programs are not yet open for application, so the fact that they're not yet open in early March tells me it's not likely that it's anytime sooner than, that kind of midsummer timing. So yeah, my guess is it's probably somewhere between June 1st and September 30th is the application deadline for those. And they're also biennial, so similar to the state RCO. So they're open for application in 2022, and the next window is 2024.
Okay, and is that where perhaps the application would be for the remaining funds needed to complete the design?
So that's included in the primary capital funding request that'll go back into the state capital budgeting process next year in January. So January 28th of 2023, there will be an application submitted for $5 million in capital to fund, as a portion of that, to fund the design, whatever the remaining design work is. And there's a kind of a continuum of expenses there. You start paying contracting fees for final design, final costing kind of things later in the project. So later in that phase. So but we've got all of that included. The full, potential up to $2 million in design fees is included in that primary capital budget request. That will go up in January.
Okay, so good news. Thank you, Matt. That was a lot of work on your part to get that application in and get it done. I appreciate it. It's I'm sure that's going to kickstart our design process and get us out to the community and talking to people about it and getting them all on board, which is what the next step should be. Any other comments before we move out of comprehensive plan? Okay. I'll just move on. So up next, we're talking COVID restrictions. As of March 12th, masks were no longer required indoors in most spaces in the state of Washington. We initiated a policy for staff. So staff will carry a mask with them at all times while working. You do not have to wear a mask in the office. You do not have to wear a mask out in the field. However, if we are approached by someone who is wearing a mask as a courtesy to that person, we will put a mask on and greet them the way they are approaching us. We felt that was a polite and courteous thing to do. If somebody's wearing a mask, they're obviously, protecting themselves or protecting their family, and we want to be understanding and follow that lead. Pardon me. Okay, and then with the mask requirements lifted, we're looking at next month to come back to meet in person in the conference room. Our plan, I'm going to work with Sky on this over the next couple of weeks. Our plan is to develop a hybrid meeting setup to include an option for online, maybe online viewing, but in person if you want to comment. so you have to show up in person. I don't know how we're going to really work this. Commissioners would still have the opportunity to attend remotely. That's still in our process and our procedures. So we would probably use the same programs we've been using, but just do it online from the office. And then looking down the road, probably not this year, but looking at updating our protocols, maybe with the construction of the new building, if that is timely, or maybe next year with the new budget cycle of becoming more electronic in our board meetings in person, having either iPads or some sort of electronic equipment for commissioners to use at the meeting, and having that be connected into a system where we can all work together, and listen to each other and that kind of thing at the meeting, either in person or remotely. So we're not completely set up on that yet, but we do have a plan to move forward next month with in-person and online viewing with the YouTube channel. So just giving you guys a quick update. We will continue to monitor, and if we have a relapse or a spike again and we have to go back to this, at least we know how to do it. We're well practiced at this point. So we should be good to go. Any questions on any of that?
Can I send my avatar to talk to Krista, your avatar?
I was trying to think of like how many in-person meetings I actually attended as a commissioner, because like we went into lockdown, right? Yeah. Anyway, so this will be fun.
It's almost been 2 years, I think, 2 full years exactly to when we stopped meeting. I'd have to double check, but I believe we met in person in March and then we shut down in April. But I'm not positive. I'd have to double check.
Nope, you are absolutely right, Doug.
So that's our plan. After 2 full years of meeting remotely, we're going to bring it back home. Any questions on any of that? Okay.
All right, our next order of business is new business. Aquatic Center bond issue discussion.
So, board had discussed in prior board meetings the option of putting a ballot on the August ballot of 2022. If we are planning to do that still, if that is what the board still desires to do, we have to have a decision at our April board meeting, because we have to put that in prior to when we would meet at our May board meeting to be on the ballot in August. So this is our opportunity to discuss it as a full board. I know we had outreach from the foundation board, and Matt has also shared this with the pool committee, I'm understanding, the link to this meeting. So if the board so desires, the board could vote to suspend Robert's rules for this agenda item and give them the opportunity to speak, if they so thought, on their thoughts on what we should do. This is simply a discussion item. There is no action on this, other than maybe if the board wants me to, I bring a resolution to the April meeting. That would be the only thing that the board would take action on. But I wanted to give the board an opportunity to discuss. At this point we're at, and I'll express my 2 cents and then I can open it up to you guys. My 2 cents are at the point we are at with where we're at with the process. I think we might be premature in putting it on the ballot in August. I don't think we have enough. My mind would be to put this into a public kind of design process, especially now that we've been awarded $400,000 from the state to start that, and go into a public design process, bring the community in, get their feedback, get their input, and get their buy-in, and then bring this back at a future date when the board thinks we're ready. That would be my 2 cents and what I would suggest, but that's just my opinion as the executive director. So you as the board are open to discussion on this, and you can direct me at the end of that discussion to bring a resolution in April to put it on the ballot in August. And I'm open to answering any questions or any thoughts, any ideas you want from me going forward. So go ahead.
Well, I'll start the ball rolling by what I'd really like to see is the pro cons of both, meaning what would be the advantage of running in August and what's the advantage of waiting. Doug mentioned, moments ago, I understand the hesitation, but I don't, and I've been trying hard to pay attention to the pool committee's emails and being somewhat new to it. I'm trying to be a good listener, but I'd really like to see what would be the benefit of each argument, for waiting versus going forward in August. And maybe other people are more clear on that than I am, but I think there's legitimacy to probably both sides of that argument.
Yeah, I'll say just
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So at this point, I think that tremendous strides have been made in getting the support of our District 10 legislators and getting that $400,000 that will actually allow us to get into a design process, which is something we've not been able to do before when we have gone before the constituents with bond issues. And Matt or Doug, if you could just refresh us on when those timelines were, the past 2 or 3 times we've done it.
Yeah, it was 1996. Eric was the one who was involved directly in that one. I know he's got stories from the 96 campaign, and then we did it again in 2008.
Mhm.
Both cases received about the same 40% support versus the 60% supermajority required. So if you do the math, depending on how you do the math, came up about 1,000 votes short in each case.
Yeah. So, so I guess my best way that I would express it, I mean, those were both prior to my time here. My best way to express it is I feel like we get a shot at this. It's not like we can put it on the ballot and then come back again in 6 months and put it on the ballot again. I think we have a shot. I think we need to take the best shot that we can. And I think putting it when we don't have, my big thing right now is looking at this. Matt's done a rendering, but the actual rendering of the design might look similar to that. It might look nothing like that. The layout might be slightly different, might be completely different. Matt's an incredible person, and he's using a program, but I don't know how structural that program is. I don't know the way that works. I'm not an architect, and Matt, unless you've got a degree in that I don't know about, I don't know. I know you're incredibly intelligent and well versed in things, but I think you're just doing design, and it's wonderful. But I think it's a great tool for us to go after the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. I don't think we want to take that to the community and go, hey, vote for a bond. This is what we're building, because we don't know that's what it is. So you asked for kind of pros and cons, Eric. That's kind of my 2 cents is in my mind, I'm not confident we have what we're trying to have the community vote for to put in front of them. And until we do that, I don't think it's wise to put it on the ballot. But that's, again, and then I'll try and shut up now, but I just wanted to answer that.
All right, so I'll continue with my train of thought there. And now that we've got, excuse me, this 400,000 that's been allocated, and if we can get some of this chamber money, right, to finish fleshing out this design process, that is going to dovetail in nicely with the foundation's work with this capital campaign. I know that we've all been having discussions that we know that there are some wonderful people in our community that will certainly support this, but no one ever wants to be the first one in. And so if we've got the legislature behind us, that should start moving in the right direction. Whatever can be done through the LWCF and the RCO grants and that sort of thing. If we've got 4 different places, including the constituents that we're drawing from, by the time that we finally do go for a bond issue, we've got that money fleshed out much better, and we've got a better plan to present to the community for that one shot?
So to go back to how Eric started this with, I think, an excellent question. What would be reasons to put this in front of the voters in August? What would be the advantage there? Why? Can anyone answer that?
I'll offer an opinion. I would say one of the considerations is, kind of voter sentiment. And, right now, and you can, if you look at it by different metrics, you can come to different conclusions, but, voter sentiment is generally becoming more positive coming out of the pandemic. So there's, impetus now that who knows what the situation is going to be like 12 months from now, or 10 months from now, or 8 months from now. Are we going to be back in, with another variant and back in restrictions, and things are going to be different, maybe. So I think that's one potential consideration. But again, if you look at different ways, if you cut that different ways, like right now, there's some pessimism coming in from inflation pressures. There's pessimism coming in from housing pressures. So maybe that's, like I said, maybe that's not a pro. The other one is potentially other tax bond measures that are potentially in the mix in the next 24 months. And again, you could look at those two different ways. One, the one that we think we know about is the school going for a large capital bond on the November ballot this year. So you could say you want to be in front of that, because if the public votes for a significant, takes on a significant additional debt obligation with the school, who knows what the appetite is to do something similar for the park after. But, again, I think you could also look at that both ways. So I think the timing relative to other bond measures that we think might happen is something we need to at least consider and could factor into this. And I think just overall sentiment of the public, just another factor for consideration.
So if we were to go in August, do we even have an idea of how much we're even asking for?
Yeah, the pool committee, and I didn't mention this yet, but the pool committee is meeting tomorrow night to discuss this topic and try to come to a recommendation on the timing in particular. But in the overall budget calculation, the number that we've been talking around, kind of order of magnitude, this is not set or decided or recommended, but order of magnitude is 10 million. And the calculation on that, the millage rate for that is about 9 cents, 8 to 9 cents per thousand, roughly. So, in comparison to our, our M&O levy that we just passed at 22 cents. So it's capital, the repayment cost of that over 20 years is somewhere between 8 and 9 cents per thousand.
And is that 10 million, is that based upon an assumption that we are going to the constituents for 50%, 60%?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, that round numbers, yes. The rough estimates for cost based on very early design estimates is somewhere between, in that neighborhood of around 20 million. So it's roughly 50%. But again, that's not been decided or recommended. That's just conversation at the committee, discussions at the committee level. So I would not consider that to be a firm recommendation from the committee to the board, but order of magnitude, those are the things that have been in the discussion anyway. When the when the bond firm that we signed up, D.A. Davidson, Doug signed an agreement to bring them on last year for this project. They ran calculations starting at 5 million and all the way up to 20 million. So we have the numbers, those millage rate calculations and the repayment calculations for, I don't know if it's every million between 5 and 20, but it's close. So, wherever that ends up falling in the recommendation, we've already got from D.A. Davidson the calculations of the cost, the repayment costs, and schedules for every one of those scenarios. So,
Matt, forgive me if you already said this, but have you guys discussed how or gotten some sort of estimate on what would be the ongoing impact to an M&O levy for, is that gonna need to raise that by 2 cents or to cover the cost of a pool for the ongoing just operations of it?
yep. Yeah, that was part of the feasibility study that was funded by the foundation that ran, most of last year and wrapped up towards the end of the year. Is that Doug was part of that planning process with the feasibility consultants to build the M&O plan for the facility, showing the cost recovery and the ultimate supplemental M&O that would be required to operate it. So when the conversations that we've had at the pool committee level have been around being transparent with the public, and when we're doing the voter education, whenever the bond happens, to be communicating both of those costs together. So it's a package deal. It's not, we're just going to talk about the capital costs and then later, or only in response to questions, talk about the M&O, talking about them together. Here's the total cost to the community for the capital construction of this facility and to operate and maintain it. So yeah, no, absolutely. And fortunately that work was, a lot of that groundwork done during the feasibility process, and Doug being involved made sure, we had the, a set of staff eyes, and Doug's experience maintaining and operating pools in his previous job postings, I think helped feed accuracy and legitimacy into those calculations. So I think we know, and we'll know pretty well, and be able to talk about that together in the voter education process.
And the goal tomorrow at the pool committee meeting at 5 o'clock is actually get a feel from committee members whether or not they believe that should be run in August or not, correct, Matt?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think generally it's, August of 2022 versus August of 2023. As Doug said, so what we had done, what we did last year is in the budget process, we budgeted $30,000 in election costs for August of 2022. And so when we agreed that budget, that was when you talk about this thing being in our plan, air quotes plan, that budget was the codification of that. But that doesn't mean we have to do it in August of 2022. That we can consciously decide to shift those funds and push that into the budgeting process for 2023, and just factor in, what we, that 30,000 estimate for August. The August bond measure filing was based on other bonds that we anticipated would, or other measures that would be on the ballot in that same ballot timing. So we'd just, Doug would work with the county again. Would just need to work with the county again in planning for the 2023 budget to figure out what we would estimate as the election costs in 2023. So that's all we would do.
My own feelings is I want to hear what the pool committee has to say tomorrow evening. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
I think it's premature for us to make a decision or weigh in on things. The pool committee's put a lot of effort into this, and they're, they're way more knowledgeable than I am about it. But I'm interested in hearing that, and that discussion's unfortunately taking place after our meeting. So when I say premature, it seems like a discussion topic in April rather than tonight. I think it's great that we're all talking about it, but once again, I think the pool committee is going to have a bigger recommendation and maybe consensus tomorrow evening.
So the one comment I'll make on that is, I know I've been asked by a couple of committee members that they would like to hear what the board thinks, and it's kind of that chicken and egg scenario. Everybody wants to hear what everybody else thinks on this prior to making a recommendation. So I think if they could even just hear from you guys at this meeting what you're thinking along in your heads right now with your opinions, that would probably help them be better equipped to make their decision.
Well, being new to commissioner role in the pool, I know the pool has been talked about and researched for a couple of decades, and I know a couple of you have years in it, and I think the community needs it. It sounds like that we have a 10 million or so that we're going to be requesting, but we aren't entirely sure on that yet. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have the design totally nailed down. That's what the 400,000 will be helping to go to. To me, that coupled with the levy that just successfully passed, it seems like there could potentially be a little bit of voter fatigue right now too. Just one idea, one thought, I should say. And that maybe we could nail down exactly what the asking price is before we went back to the public, and be as transparent as we can, of course, as Matt's talked about. That's my 2 cents right now. Again, I'm totally new to this, so take that how you want.
Had you had, just from your background, Jake, had you had any experience with similar projects of any kind of similar scope in your other jobs?
No, not on that level, not on $1 million level. Worked around a couple pools, but my specialization is more trails, campgrounds, and the occasional sport or not. So not an aquatics background.
Okay.
The only thing I would add about, Matt, you brought up the school bond, and I'm on the bond committee, and I'm not convinced that bond's going to fly, just in terms of where we're at for a number of reasons. So the distance between the school bond and running it a year later in August, I think is enough that it's not going to have an impact either way. That's my own personal opinion. I don't think it's going to be, a driving force in voter turnout or apathy one way or another. But I would say that I think, just our path, you mentioned 96, you mentioned trying to run these in the past, and we've just got to have a really solid plan and something to sell to the public. The rendering, the pictures, the actual full throttle with everything we've got has to be out there, because I know that the minute this gets out there, there's going to be people that are just going, we already have a pool. The same argument that's been made over and over again, it's going to come out. And I know you know that, Matt, but my biggest worry in this is that we don't sell it the right way. And that's a tough one, because everybody has different opinions on what the pool should be. And everybody has different opinions about the additives, or, should it be 2 pools? Should we have therapy? Should we have these different things that come in? What should that building look like? And, I know you have to get to consensus at some point, but I don't know that I'm necessarily seeing that drive and that finalized product that's going to sell. And I have concerns about that. That's my opinion. And I want the pool more than anything, but I want to make sure we get it.
Yeah.
So do you think?
I want the pool. I really want this pool. And I think what has been done to date is awesome. That $400,000 and all of the effort Matt, that you have put in with our representatives is such a huge boost that we have never had before. And to not waste, but to rush this amazing opportunity makes me very uncomfortable. Everything always takes longer. And for an August vote, we need to start getting out there in like 10 weeks.
We need to be out there 10 weeks ago.
Really. And I don't think like I could go to a public meeting and be able to answer everybody's questions in that short amount of time. And I really, really, really want a pool.
We've got a good
enough for
start
kayaking.
on building the goodwill, and we have an opportunity to just make that goodwill pot even richer, so that when we do get in front of people, Krista, with our community events, and when we are able to say we have a rock solid plan, because right, it's not just asking our community to help us build it. We also have to remember that we're going to have to ask our community in the years to come to help maintain it. So let's build it correctly. Let's present it correctly. Let's make sure it's what they want, what we all want, because we are all connected. And let's do it right. We know in our heads what our path is. Let's stay the course.
Well put.
Well, I think Eric and I have enough to go on. I took a bunch of notes. I got Doug's recording as my backup, and we can go to the pool committee tomorrow and relay this and feed that into the discussion, and then we'll come back with a resultant recommendation from the committee back to the board. So,
Okay.
Thanks for all that input.
All right.
And your 2 cents, Jake. We need like.
Don't ever discount yourself for being the new kid. It's the fresh eyes that actually can get people out of the weeds. So don't be afraid to speak up, please.
Yeah, it's good to hear everyone's opinion on it, and yeah, I know you guys have so much time into it, and applause to that 400,000 just granted. That is really awesome.
Yes, again, kudos to Matt on the 400,000. That was his efforts. He brought that in, and that gives us a huge jump start. And I think Jennifer, you hit the nail on the head too. It's like nobody wants to be the first to put the money in the bucket, but now we've got 400,000 in the bucket. So now we could say, well, we've already got 400,000 from the state on this. We're starting design. Let's move. And hopefully get those on board. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to stay in touch tight with Matt and Eric in the meeting tomorrow night and get their recommendation. And based on their recommendation, I'll bring another agenda item next month and we can look at it then.
Just a request, and I don't know who does this. I don't know if it's Parks or the Pool Committee or the Foundation, but there's going to be a press release, right?
When we take some action?
Yeah.
Yes.
About this $400,000.
Oh, that definitely we should do a press release on that. Yes.
Yeah, and we have some,
Start telling the public what's going on.
So
and we
I'm
have
just gonna do something really quick here. And yes, we do have our wonderful South Whidbey record reporter is actually online with us right now, so I'm sure there will not need to be much of a press release. But if Kira has any questions about it, she can contact me tomorrow.
Thank you, Kira.
So just one point about where Doug had mentioned this idea of one shot. I'll just give you the history from the local history of most recent local history of bond measures that I know about. So the one that was most recent was there's a pool project in Sideview, which is in North Bend, We've talked to them, and the feasibility consultants who did their feasibility study are the same ones who did ours. So we know of them, and I've actually got a chance to meet their director. So they went to the voters with something like a $40 million project last year, and it failed by like a 2% margin. I think they got 58% support. So just missed, and they went back to the public and have been, saying, hey, okay, we're trying to learn the lessons from that, adjust based on community feedback, and they are planning to go back to the voters a year and a half later this August with a slightly adjusted plan. So that was one. The one before that I know of was the city of Fircrest in Tacoma, a little tiny town. They were through a $13 million bond, and that passed with something like a 70+% majority for a community pool renovation. They ended up only spending about 8 or 9 million out of that 13 authorization that they got from the public. And then the one that I know from the last round, when we were going in 2008, Bainbridge Island went to the public with a bond measure, and it failed. And then they downsized the project by something like half, and a year and a half later went back to the public, and that failed. And then they went back to the original plan and went back to the public again, like a year and a half after that, and it passed. So, yeah, who knows? So, to me, it tells you that every community is different, that we need, the idea that, we got a very diverse group on the pool committee, lots of different backgrounds and experiences, taking the temperature of the South Whidbey population will help guide us, I think, most effectively. What makes the most sense for our population? So, yeah, I like I said, there's an interesting history out there. And if anybody wants to talk to any of those folks, we've got contacts on the Fircrest City Council who were involved in the project and involved in that public vote. So if anybody wants to talk to them and kind of get a feel for, like Jake, if you want to get a feel for what their experience was, the guy at Parks and Rec director at Sideview would be more than willing to talk to anybody about his experience. And I still have contact for some of the Bainbridge folks. So like any of those things, if anyone wants to contact and talk to those folks offline, just to get more educated on their experiences and see what you can learn, I'd be glad to share out the contact information for those folks.
Yeah, I think there would be tremendous value to determine where they felt their shortcomings were, and just make sure we've got our bases covered, right? I mean, I think we've pretty much determined that we're on the right path. We're not ready yet, but what else don't we know, right? That's always one of my favorite questions at the end of a discussion. I'm working with people who are, the professional in the room. What am I not asking that I should be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say we have a great community that has supported us significantly, and we've got a great amount of equity in our community. They really care about what we do, and they really support what we do. And we need to, that's why I'm very careful with my thoughts on this and very, very reserved with it, and going, I want to make sure if we're going to bring this to the community that it looks and it is, the project. Like, this is it. This is what we're looking at. We've got that equity. I mean, we passed our last maintenance and operations levy well into the mid 70s. That's a resounding approval. I want that for the pool. I want the pool to come back and be a 70% plus approval. So that's, I think, what I'm thinking is we've built up that equity. We've got a shot at using that equity, and I want to make the shot count.
Yeah, you want just one other data point. This is really interesting. These things just are fascinating to me. But Fircrest is it's a suburb or a small town within the city limits kind of Tacoma, the overall area of Tacoma, if you've ever been there. So they have about a population of about 6,700, something like that. So about a third of our population in the district. And that 70+% approval was for a millage rate of, I think it was 65 cents per thousand. So just as an order of magnitude. So, we're talking about, if you just take that ballpark estimate of 10 million, we're talking about 8.5 cents as a millage rate. And Fircrest voters were asked to approve, 8 times that, and they approved it. So, to me, that says if you have a compelling story, if you're meeting the community need, and that's what they really focused on, that the community will support you. So.
Okay. Well, that's the last agenda item. If there's nothing else, anybody have anything else?
We'll actually get to see you guys in person a month from now. I cannot wait.
Group hug.
It will be a group hug for 100% sure.
You guys are probably thinking, did the lights go out at the Joe Kynan house? Has he not paid his electric bill? It was light when we started this meeting, and I just haven't got up to turn it on.
You guys are
I
awesome.
wasn't sure if you'd gone into the witness protection program or what your deal was. So very good to know.
Blair Witch too.
So hearing nothing else business-wise, can we adjourn?
Yes, let me go ahead. And so we are adjourned at 7:52.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're very welcome. Thank you,
Guys,
everyone.